Buying your first rental property in just 3 months might sound like a dream, but it's a reality that I've lived and you can too. I'm not here and I will never be here to sell you on a get-rich-quick scheme. They do not exist and they do not work. I'm here to share the hard-earned lessons from my journey so you can avoid the pitfalls and fast-track your path to real estate success. Fast-track your path does not mean you'll become a millionaire overnight. It puts you on the path to getting wealthy sooner. And the longer you delay, the more time you've added to that path. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact steps I took to buy my first rental property in 90 days, and I'll show you how to do the same without making the costly mistakes that I did. So let's dive in. Now, before we get into it, let me tell you why this matters. Real estate investing can be a game changer for your financial future, but it's not without its challenges, hence why the returns are so good. When I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. I made mistakes. I lost money. I learned the hard way. But guess what? Through that trial and error, I developed a system that works for me. Some of the worst times of my real estate investing, I sit there and go, oh, thank God those happened because I'm so good at investing now. And I hope to make more mistakes so I get even better in the future. So the first step is take a hard look at your finances. How much money do you have saved up that you're willing to invest in real estate? This isn't just about what's in your bank account. It's about understanding what you can afford and how to make your money work harder. For example, if you have $20,000, you might think you're limited, but that's not necessarily true. Yes, I came from money. But when I first started buying real estate, my family was opposed to it. They didn't want to buy real estate, so I had to buy on my own. And I had about $27,000 in my account. I had to get creative. Now, what I did was I found a 5% down payment. But guess what? That was 2003 when money was a lot more loose. If it were today, you know what I'd do? I would talk to my friends and some family members and say, listen, just give me a little bit so we can put a little bit of money together to buy a property. If you've managed to save, especially at a young age, it shows responsibility and people are more likely to trust you with their investment. There are also other ways to raise funds. Crowdfunding platforms can connect you with investors looking to get in real estate. Private lenders may be willing to fund your deal, but they're kind of expensive. The key is to explore all options that make sense to you that may be outside of the scope of a traditional bank. Now, it's really important. Whatever money you have, don't spend 100% of it on a down payment. On my other videos on the main channel, I don't like emergency funds. I don't believe in having them. For real estate investing, I do believe in having them. Things will go poorly. You have to have the money ready to go. I do not recommend that you sit there and put all of your money down as down payment. How much is right for you? I don't know. I used to always say, I borrowed something from Bill Gates. Bill Gates always wanted to have 6 months of payroll in the bank so that even if they didn't sell anything, they'd always have that money. I said, I want 6 months of mortgage payments. That's what I always wanted. Now, depends on the kind of property you buy, how much you put down, et cetera, that'll change for everybody. Real estate absolutely comes with unexpected costs. And even if it's covered by insurance, guess what? You still need to cover the cost until the insurance company gets involved because you're not going to tell a tenant, hey, sorry, there's a hole in your roof. I can't do anything about it, but once the insurance gets around to it, we'll handle it. I learned that the hard way years later when I had to shell out, when I got involved in a lawsuit on a multi-million-dollar fire. My property went from 90% occupied to 25% because I was waiting for the insurance company to write a check. We ended up suing them and we ended up winning after the CEO was caught lying under deposition and his board of directors at Lloyd's of London. And I have no problem throwing those people under the bus. It was Lloyd's of London. The sack of shit CEO lied and like crazy. And one guy said, yeah, we just didn't give you the money because coffee or tea in the morning. We just decided not to give you the money that morning. That was literally said under deposition. Guys, even though I won, I still lost $1 million on that. Always keep an emergency fund handy. Step number 2, property management. You need to decide who's going to manage this property. Now, I have a very strong opinion on this. If you're not going to manage the property yourself, do not buy the property. Third-party management sucks. I know there's somebody watching there right now who either owns a third-party manager or knows somebody who does and says, not all of them suck. Little secret. They all fucking suck. They're money-hungry assholes who don't give a fuck about anything but their own pocket. I have hired and fired 10 or 12 of them. And you know what happens every single time I fire them? Here are my revenue. Here are my expenses. When I fire them, my revenue skyrockets, my expenses go down, my net income explodes through the roof. I'm sitting there draping myself in velvet after I fire these losers. There's reasons why they can't do well. And of course, I'll hear somebody say, that's not true, Paul. I will take on any third-party manager in the world head-to-head, and I guarantee I will beat them. If you can't manage it yourself, don't buy it. But managing a property doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. If you're not good at certain tasks, there are affordable ways to outsource it. Find a business partner, someone who'll write a check with you and also get paid for the management. You can hire virtual assistants for a few dollars an hour to handle different administrative tasks or partner with somebody who has those skills that help out. The key is to find solutions that work for you and keep you in control of your money and your investing. If a property manager looks at you and ever says the words, "I'm going to manage the property like it's my own," run away as fast as they can. There's a perfect inverse correlation between the people who say that and how much money I make. The more they say that, the less money I make. Another option is to use technology to streamline management. There are numerous apps, especially nowadays, and software tools that can help with tenant screening, rent collection, maintenance, everything like that. If you use these tools, you can manage your property more efficiently and reduce the need for external help. Number 3, now you can start your property search. Your goal is to buy as much revenue as possible for as little money as possible. No different than any other investment. You want to pay as little as possible. Stick to areas near your home. This makes management a lot easier and helps reduce the risk because then you can get to places quicker and you understand the area a little bit better. Don't fall in love with an area. Focus on the numbers. I don't like Dave Ramsey, but I saw a video the other day that I absolutely agreed with when he said, the harder the area, the more money you're going to make. The nicer the area, the less money you're going to make. And it's completely true. Decide what kind of property fits your personality. If you like doing hands-on work, I strongly encourage a fixer-upper. You're going to add so much value by doing the renovation yourself. You're going to renovate bathrooms, kitchens, and you're going to increase the rent and therefore increase your returns and the value of the property. On the other hand, if you prefer something low maintenance, look for turnkey properties that are already renovated. But guess what? You will make less money. That's okay. Remember, I can go over through the numbers, but numbers are just part of the story. You also need to consider the property's condition, location, and potential for appreciation. Now, you'll always hear people say, location, 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 to which I respond with, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Like I said, the better the location, the more people want to own it, the higher the price goes, the lower the returns go. But it's probably also less hassle. I loved it a few years ago. I was sitting on a panel of real estate professionals, and finally, somebody said, yeah, we try to get 9 or 10% returns on our properties. And we're all like, what? That's it? He's like, yeah, but we're also buying premium top spots like Rodeo Drive. I'm like, okay, got it. I was happy he said that. Because a lot of people would lie to you and say, I'm going to buy you Rodeo Drive. You're going to get 20% returns. It's not impossible, but it's probably pretty difficult. When I first started searching for a property, I fell in love with the first property. The numbers didn't make sense, but I didn't care. I fell in love with owning that property. Learn from my mistake. Let the data guide your decisions. Don't let the emotions get the best of you. Use tools like our real estate calculator to potentially analyze these properties. Guys, every investment is the present value of all future cash flow. You put in all your data here, all the revenue, expenses, mortgage, and it'll spit out what your IRR is. You don't need some super complicated Excel sheet. I know real estate professionals who've used this and they write me texts saying this thing is awesome. Why is it awesome? Because it's simple. This deal right here is 3 single-family homes that I've bought for Airbnb. I put in the number of units, appreciation rate, vacancy, purchase price, my income rate per month, my expenses per unit, everything in here, my rehab, my mortgage, my refinances, boom. Everything here, view IRR, tells me my cash flow by year, all my refinance dollars, everything I need to go. If it doesn't hit a certain threshold, you should avoid it. What's that threshold? It depends on the deal. The more work you're doing, the higher your IRR needs to be. Okay, step number 4, secure your financing. Before you start making offers, you need to know what financing options are available to you, because guess what? That's a big part of analyzing these deals, your mortgage and your refinance. If you don't know what terms you're looking at, you're gonna make mistakes. Go to your bank. Ask what they offer for investment property, but don't stop there. Shop around, get the terms. If they try to tell you, well, it depends on the deal, you want to do me a favor. You want to pull your thumb out like this, your fist out like this, and you want to go like this, right to their face, and you want to go, fuck you, bank. Because bankers suck. They're idiots. They're salespeople. Just get the normal terms. If you have to lie to them with a fake deal, do it. I'm not telling you to lie to them when you're doing the application, but get the terms that you need to find out in order to put it in here. If they don't want to give that to you, never do business with them again. Close your account immediately and take a dump on that banker's car. Guys, credit unions are going to offer you the best rates. Now, credit unions also tend to not like things going into LLCs, so that's something you have to consider. but go shop around. Remember, if your credit union can give you 0.5% or 1% lower on a loan that's $300,000 or $400,000, you're going to save some big money. That's a few $100s a month. Conventional loans are common, but you also might want to look into FHA loans if you plan on living in the property to start, putting some money into it, and a year or two later, moving on from it. There's a lot of pros and cons to everything, financing related, so make sure you do your research to find the best fit for your situation. My personal opinion is, I like to do 7 or 10 year fixed rates. So it'll amortize over 20 to 30 years, but I lock in my rate for 7 or 10 years. It allows me to then go do a refinance, take some money out, and go do it again. Plus, you're gonna get a better rate than locking in for 30 years. Now, it also depends on where you are in the mortgage cycle. My wife, she owned a home. She got a 30-year mortgage at 2.625%. I don't know if we're ever going to refinance that. It's too low of a rate. There'll be a time when it makes sense to suck out equity, but right now is not the time for her. Once you have your financing options in place, then you use the real estate calculator to understand how the mortgage will affect your deal, because the mortgage does affect your deal. I recently bought a house in Georgia on a lake. My realtor said, Paul, talk to my mortgage broker. I'm like, nah, he can't touch my rate. Yes, he can. Yes, he can. Finally, she said, listen, can I just have him call you? He called me. Here's how long the conversation lasted. What are your terms right now? Well, I got to pull your credit. You're not pulling my credit. Let's say my credit's 800. Well, I got to really see. Let's say my credit is 800. What would you give me? Yeah, you're looking at 7%. Okay, we're done here. I'm at 5.375. Done. Move on. That's how I want you to even look at deals. Don't waste your time. At the end of the day, they want to sit there and wine and dine you. Forget about it. Because the second that guy has gone from that bank, somebody else can replace them, has no idea who you are. So get the best deal for you. Make sure you factor in all the costs, loan fees. I once had a bank try to charge me 5% on closing and say, well, our typical deal is 5%. And they literally said, and we're here at the closing, so what can you do about it? I said, great, I'll just pay cash. I had the ability at that point. But if it wasn't for that, I would have been absolutely screwed. Paying a 5% fee, not a 5% interest rate, but if you're borrowing like $500,000, that's a $25,000 fee. That'll absolutely destroy your returns. Make sure you understand the property taxes in your area. Do your own research on it. I once overlooked the property tax rate in a particular area, and it absolutely crushed my profits. That was the first property I ever bought. That was a big property, and it cost me $1 million. And you know what my broker said to me as we were doing the deal? I would never let you overpay. And guess what? I overpaid because I didn't factor in property taxes. Shouldn't he have been the one helping me with that one? He said he would never let me overdo it. That's why this is all in your control. Now, back to mortgages. You might be wondering, what's the right mortgage? 15-year, 30-year? Listen, I tell people, take a 30-year mortgage, and if you want to pay it down like a 15-year, do it. But give yourself the flexibility of tough financial times. You might have to put a little bit less payment in there. But choose what aligns with your financial goals. Step 5, final step. It's time to make offers. Guys, don't be shy. You need to go find as many properties as you can and make offers on multiple ones. I want you to make 10 offers, but make your offers low enough that you'd be surprised if more than a couple of sellers even respond to you. Your aim is to find a great deal, not just a good deal. I made the mistake of falling in love with that first property and overpaying, which cost me dearly in the long run. Learn from my mistake. Be disciplined. Stick to your numbers. Do not get emotionally attached. And the only way to not get emotionally attached is find multiple properties. When crafting your offers, consider including contingencies that protect you, such as inspection or financing contingencies. In fact, don't consider it, fucking do it. This way, if something goes wrong, you can back out without losing your earnest money. Be prepared to negotiate. And guys, negotiating isn't about sitting there and just going back and forth. I hate negotiating. To me, when people want to negotiate, all they want to do is have an ego battle. All I want to do is get the deal at the price for me. I have no problem if I want to pay $1 million for a property and somebody says, Paul, $1.1 million. Are we good? I'm like, no, my price is $1 million. If I'm not willing to pay $1 over $1 million, you know what I say to people? Give me your best and final, but know that if it's $1 above something I'm willing to pay, I'm going to say no. Or I say to them, give me your best and final, and if I offer you $1 less, you would say no. Because to me, negotiating is about both people walking away with what makes sense to them. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Negotiating isn't about getting a deal done. It's about getting the right deal done. When you're dealing with your agent, make sure you tell them that you're going to be making a lot of offers up front. If they're not on board with that, you need to find somebody who is. When I started out, my first agent wasn't comfortable with this strategy. So I switched to somebody who understood my goals. This made a big difference in my success. And then you know what I did to make an even bigger difference? I dropped that person too because realtors and agents and brokers are whores. They will do anything for a dollar. So I need to protect myself. I'm not going to be allegiant to any one person. Remember, it's a numbers game. The more offers you make, the better your chances of landing a great deal. So there you have it, guys. 5 steps to buying your first rental property in just 3 months. You can do all of those in under 1 month, by the way. It's not always easy, and you'll make mistakes along the way. That's okay. The important thing is to learn from those mistakes and keep moving forward. This community and channel are here to support everybody's endeavors. So please learn from my experiences and save yourself time and money. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe and join our VIP real estate report for more insights. And if you're ready to take your next step in buying your first rental property, click the video that's linked on the screen to watch my full course because I share all the strategies and tools that I wish I had when I started. Remember, real estate investing is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to your goals. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.